Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring the heavy emotional toll of leadership, but we're doing it through a rather unexpected lens: ancient wisdom. I mean, if you've been in management for any real length of time, you already know that leading people and navigating crises can feel incredibly isolating. So, we're going to look at the psychological valleys you walk through, and we'll do it by examining the very words we use to describe our absolute hardest days.
Seriously, have you ever felt like you're surviving a hostile takeover? I want to speak directly to the managers and business leaders out there. You absolutely know this exact feeling. It's that high-stakes stress of the boardroom, the crushing weight of a looming deadline, the pressure of making impossible decisions when literally millions of dollars or even people's livelihoods are on the line. When you're in that intense pressure cooker, what kind of language do you actually use to describe your day to your peers?
Well, you've probably said these exact phrases by the time you've poured your second cup of lukewarm coffee on a Tuesday. We're talking about being caught between a rock and a hard place, dealing with a thorn in your side, working with wolves, being at your wit's end, or just biting the dust. We use these expressions all the time when dealing with systemic annoyances, fierce competitors, and peak executive burnout. We just kind of assume these are modern corporate buzzwords, right? Some linguistic shorthand we invented to survive the modern 9-to-5 grind.
But here's where it gets really fascinating. 3,000. That number represents roughly how many years old these crisis management phrases actually are. They didn't originate in a Wall Street boardroom or a Silicon Valley startup. No, they originated directly from the Bible. The vocabulary you use to describe your modern workplace stress is actually an incredibly ancient language of survival.
So, here is our survival guide for the corporate valley today. We'll be covering the leadership wilderness, being between a rock, stepping into the lion's den, enduring a thorn in the flesh, finding yourself at your wit's end, and finally, the source of resilience. Let's get into it. Section 1. The leadership wilderness. Hardship is built into leadership.
Section 2. Between a rock. Navigating impossible choices with no good options.
Okay, so caught between a rock and a hard place, having to choose between two equally difficult or unacceptable options. You have absolutely been in this meeting. There are two options on the table. Both of them are terrible. Both will cost you money, morale, or market share. And everyone in the room has gone totally quiet because, well, you are the one who has to make the final call. And this brilliantly illustrates how being trapped without a clear path forward is a trial leaders have endured for millennia. I mean, look at the modern use: no good options in a merger or a supply chain crisis. Now look at the ancient context. We're talking historical, literal life or death wilderness trials in Exodus chapter 17 and 1 Samuel chapter 17. Sure, the modern stakes are different than facing a giant, unmovable adversary, but that agonizing paralysis of leadership, that is exactly the same. Section 3. Into the lion's den. Facing aggressive competitors and toxic environments. The lion's den. It's a metaphor for a highly dangerous, hostile, or intimidating environment or situation. Whether you're facing down an incredibly aggressive competitor trying to steal your market share, or you're walking into a pitch meeting with a toxic, unforgiving board of directors, this is that terrifying moment where leadership stops feeling like a metaphorical strategy game and starts feeling like a literal fight for survival. Your heart rate spikes, you're immediately on the defensive. So the crucial point here is that while your stakeholders might feel like a pack of wolves, the historical origin of pitching a controversial strategy to an aggressive board is far more intense. It comes from the book of Daniel, where his actual case study in crisis management involved being physically sealed in a pit with lethal predators because he absolutely refused to compromise his principles. It's truly awe-inspiring when you stop and think about the life or death gravity of that historical reality. Literally into the lion's den. Daniel chapter 6, verse 16. Just think about that for a second. The fact that we still pull this exact phrase from the book of Daniel to describe our Tuesday morning 9 to 5 shows just how primal and threatening workplace hostility can genuinely feel to the human brain. We naturally reach for the language of apex predators to describe our business competitors. Section 4. A thorn in the flesh. Dealing with chronic, unfixable operational issues. A thorn in the flesh. A persistent, nagging source of irritation, pain, or trouble that one must endure. Every single manager watching this explainer has one of these. It's that legacy software system that inexplicably crashes every single Friday. It's that one endless compliance issue or that perpetually difficult vendor. It's a persistent, nagging source of trouble that you simply cannot fix, and it just drains your energy daily.
It's literally the operational paper cut that never, ever heals.
In modern business, we naturally see these chronic, unfixable operational issues as pure inefficiencies that need to be optimized right out of existence. But the ancient context is radically different. The Apostle Paul wrote about having a thorn in the flesh, some sort of physical or spiritual affliction that he basically begged to have removed, but it wasn't. What's deeply fascinating here is that Paul eventually viewed this persistent limitation not as a failure of his leadership, but as a deliberate mechanism to keep him humble. To quote 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7, "In order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh." This completely reframes the persistent corporate annoyances you face. What if that unfixable problem isn't just a hurdle, but an actual opportunity for personal grounding? It forces you to rely on your team, it prevents arrogance, and honestly, it builds deep operational character. If we look at management focus stolen by persistent frictions, the breakdown is wild. 30% on strategic vision, 20% on team development, and a whopping 50% on the thorn or unfixable issues. Up to half of our executive bandwidth is stolen by these enduring thorns. If we let them, these chronic issues will completely consume us. The ancient wisdom here tells us to accept the thorn, manage it, but absolutely do not let it blind you to the larger mission. Section 5. At your wit's end. Reaching peak burnout and the limits of human capability.
At your wit's end, to be completely confused, frustrated, or at a loss for what to do next. This is the ultimate moment of peak executive burnout. It's the terrifying realization that your expertise, your hard-earned MBA, your network, and literally all your past experience have completely run out. You are at the absolute limit of your human capability, and you have no idea what to do next. You might feel like you're sinking in deliverables and quarterly reports right now, but the origin of this phrase is shockingly literal. We go from modern peak executive burnout, when all strategic options fail, to ancient sailors caught in a violent sea storm, where their courage was literally melting away. The waves were so towering and terrifying that they simply couldn't fight it anymore. They reeled and staggered like drunkards. They were at their wits' end. That is straight from Psalm chapter 107, verse 27. To know that leaders and professionals thousands of years ago felt this exact same staggering loss of control, this sheer helplessness in the face of overwhelming forces, is incredibly validating for any modern professional. You aren't failing, you are just experiencing the upper limits of being human. Section 6. The source of resilience. Pivoting to the ancient blueprint for survival. So how do we survive the valley? Well, by consulting the ancient crisis playbook. Number 1, recognize your modern workplace struggles are shared human experiences. Number 2, read the original biblical texts, not just as religion, but as leadership case studies. And number 3, discover the battle-tested resilience used by figures like David, Daniel, and Paul. By looking directly at the source code of our English language, we uncover a battle-tested manual for surviving high-stakes pressure. I highly recommend reading these original biblical texts as detailed, profound leadership case studies to discover how these leaders didn't just survive their trials, but actively grew through them. Are you ready to consult the oldest crisis management playbook in history? I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If the Bible perfectly diagnosed your corporate burnout, your impossible decisions, and your hostile work environments thousands of years before the modern corporation even existed, doesn't it stand to reason it might also hold the solutions you're desperately looking for? The next time you face the corporate wilderness, maybe it's time to open the exact book that named your struggles in the very first place.